Welcome again to another episode of School of Airway. What I wanted to emphasize to some people, surgical airways have been deemed a failed airway. So after you fail using BVM to oxygenate someone, or using a supraglottic airway to rescue oxygenate someone, or to intubate someone through the mouth, everyone defaults to surgical airway as the failed airway. And at times, to try to go through the mouth, like this one, it says bad airway. The reason it says bad airway, he blew his face up with a shotgun, and I can't tell his nose from his chin. Or everything looks like hamburger meat, right? Ground up beef, I can't tell. And the reason he's sitting up is EMS told me something. EMS told me every time we lie him down, blood clots fly everywhere, and he chokes on blood. So I'm trying to sit up this guy who has a bad airway. Now, sometimes it doesn't have to be traumatic. It could be something like African American on an ACE inhibitor, on 3 years of it, and boom, one day, the largest mango in the world is coming out of their tongue, and it's pink. And blood streaks are coming out with saliva around it because the canines are impaling on the tongue. You know how I know? I lift the lips, and the person's freaking out crying, right? So these are airways that I would not try RSI. If you don't have a fiber optic scope, I'm going to tell you this. Everyone has a 10 blade. And everyone has lidocaine. And if you have good negotiating skills, communication skills with a patient who's short of breath, hypoxic, gasping for air, or losing his airway every time he lies down and chokes on blood, if you can convince this person verbally, document that I can do a surgical airway and I'll keep you alive. And after it's in, I'll give you medicines, you won't remember anything. If I can convince him of that, great. Right? If I could do this, and I'll do the paperwork, the saying I consent for this, right? And I will do an elective emergent surgical airway. But if he's really short of breath, I need to do this fast. All right? If I notice that he's starting to flex his muscles and trying to get anxious and scared because he's actually getting hypoxic, I will proceed as fast as possible and will not wait for answers and proceed to a surgical airway. Right? Do no harm is the Hippocratic Oath, but I need to save his life. All right? So ideally, I would get some lidocaine, a needle, and numb as much as possible my anatomy. All right. If you think that the guy's getting angsty, get an IV in him. Let the medicine world kick in, numb up. Right. This is not the time for EMLA or LET. This has to be direct, local anesthesia. Get the IV in or get IM of ketamine. Now, ideally, I give pain dose of ketamine. 0.15 to 0.3 milligrams of ketamine, so I can give aliquots of it. If he's maintaining his airway, I don't want him to go to Cahill and dissociate. I will give aliquots of the pain medicine until he's chilled out, a little calmed down. And as my backup, there's always a crowd for these surgical airways. There is someone consoling his traps and his shoulder on this side, and there's someone else controlling the shoulder and traps on the other side. Hopefully your burly-sized security guards, if you want to, or your residents, or medical students. If you want to get a good grade, they will make sure his arms don't raise up and choke me to death as I do the surgical airway. I do not need to see this coming towards my neck as I do this airway. Make sense? So they will hold this guy's shoulder in their hand, and we'll try to calm him down. All right? Hopefully the medicines kick in. You know how I know? There may be some twitching of the eyes. A little nystagmus, right? Or maybe he's just staring off a little bit because I gave him a little bit of pain dose ketamine. And then I will proceed. How do I prep? Some of you guys like ChloraPrep, but then if you get nervous, you're going to forget if you ever did it. So some of us are old school and use something called betadine. Later on, I'll find out if he has an iodine allergy. All right? Get my stuff ready. I'm going to tell you, if he's a burly big guy, you only have really two options to do a surgical airway. You got your bougie to reach, and your 60ET2. Okay?
Trauma Team Delta to the emergency room.
Now,
Trauma Team Delta to the
my
emergency
scalpel
room. You are three. Trauma
is
Team
right here.
Delta to the emergency room.
Not an 11 blade, but a 10 blade. Right? Okay? Now, I will need to use this to proceed. He's been numbed up. The betadine is dried up. Whew. Ready to go. Right? I am doing my laryngeal handshake. I will proceed. Feel my anatomy somewhere around here. But if I'm not sure, so some people say cut the hair. I say cut that to anatomy. All right, so I've cut to anatomy. Feel something. I think I feel membrane. I do a horizontal cut. If I want to dilate, I don't need a Trousseau dilator. This is my cheapest dilator possible. Fully sheathed, so you don't cut yourself. There may be blood, and if he's breathing, you'll see spittle of blood coming out of everywhere, like with air, right? Make sure I don't lose it, and make sure my colleagues are holding on his arm and shoulder. Put my bougie in. Snake in my 6.0 ET tube. Some people ask, is lube necessary? Blood and fat are the best lubricants known to man. Pull this out. We'll inflate. Now, how to get everyone off your back that is in. You can look for chest rise. He's kind of big and burly. It may not work. So, end-tidal CO2, likely best quantitative. And then you look for chest rise. So, I hope this is going to work. Sorry, I'm trying to use simulated mannequins to teach you a lesson. If you listen to the lesson, it's going to work. Okay? The alternative to this is a Shiley, but there's one thing I need to teach you guys. This is not a chest tube. To secure this best would be using something that looks like this. A Hollister ET tube holder. Now you guys are like, this is not an ET tube. It kind of is. And this is how I would teach you how to do this. Open up the adhesives. This is what you use for ET tubes. It is used in county hospitals and used in this hospital. I would actually literally strap this down. I should have opened this up, but I did. No, that's it. Bring it around. Now this guy may while out, but this is the time you tell your nurses, don't use the words, put them down. Use the medicines that you were going to use for RSI, potentially. Induce him to a coma so he doesn't remember what happened. No need to paralyze him. Hook him up with a bolus of fentanyl, 1 milligram per kilo. You can give aliquots of that with Ativan, midazolam, or put them on a drip. Your blood pressure is what dictates what you use for induction. But this is how I would secure this ET2. Right? Get the chest x-ray to confirm correct placement, and he likely gets admitted for definitive management. Okay? The only alternative to this is using a 6.0 Shiley. A 4.0 Shiley, ideally. The 6.0 is what's most commonly found. And for people who don't believe that a size 4 Shiley exists, it says 4. Alright? This is what you use for the world boards. A 6 is most commonly found and may fit, but this is the device you would put in if you had more time. But this can actually stay in as long as possible. So for those of you who don't like this, that so much plastic tubing's hanging out, you can actually modify this. Now the key to this is you can trim it. Always think of above the pilot balloon connection. Not below it, above it. If you go above it, oh shit. It works. Now be careful. These things cut. Maybe if you're not so confident going to cutting so short, cut a little higher. But this connection works. You know how you know? You put this patient on. and it works. Use end tidal, and it's still in. Just be careful how close you cut it. I almost cut it too close. But it fit. You have less ET tube to worry about, less likely to dislodge.